Did you know that the longest in-game session of Football Manager was in 2017 and the player played for 221 years? You're listening to the Xbox Hub Podcast, the official podcast of the TheXboxHub.com. For all the latest Xbox news, reviews, videos and opinions, make sure you visit the TheXboxHub.com. But for now, settle down, get comfy, and open your ears for some podcast delights. Hello and welcome to the Xbox Hub Official Podcast, episode 185. My name's Gareth. I'm going to be your host, and on my virtual left is Mr. Darren Edwards. How you doing, Darren?
Hello, good evening. I'm very well. How are you?
Very good, thank you. And on my virtual right is Mr. Paul Renshaw. How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing all right, thanks, Gareth. I'm just looking forward to getting Darren's thoughts on the autumn statement that the Conservative unveiled, and what good news it's going to be for us all. So,
yeah, we do have that. That's why I've got Darren on the left and Paul on the right.
Excellent.
Okay. We're not going to comment about that. Me and Darren would just rip it apart and it would be awful. But we're not going to do that.
Sounds like you're ganging up on me.
No, it's not. Not you. Not you.
Bloody lefty lovers.
Good, gentlemen. How's your week's been? Let's start with Darren. How's your week been?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. So back to work after a week off. So not had a chance to do much else really, but we started watching some of the classic Doctor Who stories because for Doctor Who fans, they've launched the Whoniverse, they've called it, which I think was a fan coined phrase, and they've uploaded all of the old stuff onto the iPlayer, and there's hundreds of hours worth of stories there. So it's quite an impressive and exciting thing for Doctor Who fans like myself. So we've been picking some classic stories in the build up to the new 60th specials, which start on Saturday. So I've been enjoying that. But otherwise, yeah, just back to work really, settling in for the peak season.
Oh, good. Paul, you're a big Doctor Who fan?
I'm really not, no. Because I'm not a 12-year-old. So,
You're otherwise at work.
Hey, shut your face. They've never got better than Tom Baker, to be fair. So, yeah, when he stopped being Doctor Who, I kind of lost interest in it. But anyway, let's not try and hijack my week with talking about Darren's rubbish.
No, sorry, let's get to the podcast.
Yes, let's get to the meat of the podcast. It's health update time. I went and had my eyes looked at. I may have mentioned it last week on the podcast that I was going. I've had the results back, and I still have signs of diabetic maculopathy, which basically means that the blood vessels in the back of my eyes are leaky. It's not got any worse over the last 6 months, so that's good news. So I'm just going to sort of keep on top of it. I've had to cut out caffeine. I've had to just really watch what I'm eating, try and keep my blood pressure down. So, yeah, if I never, ever see a chicken stir fry again, it'll be too soon. I am sick to the back teeth of bloody stir fry. But anyway, yeah. So, how's your week been, Gareth?
Well, I get worried about these health updates. One day it's going to take a really dark turn, and
my legs fell off.
Yeah.
I worry that jingle we're going to prepare is going to come off badly when that happens.
Good. My week's been good. I've been busy, but I've watched two things. I'm going to talk about two things really briefly. The first, but very different things. We watched The Killer, which is a film on Netflix by Fincher, the director. I've forgotten his name. David Fincher.
Yeah.
And it stars Michael Fassbender. Have I got that right?
Yep.
And it's a kind of story, a film about a kind of hitman, about the kind of like the mechanics of a hitman. So it's this hitman doing a job, and he sort of self-narrated himself. Very much a bit like Fight Club in the sense of the writing, and the job goes wrong, and and we see the repercussions of that over 2 hours. I really loved it. It's really split people, this film. I think it's great. It's really good performances, really kind of great, some really nice writing, especially self-narration. And it's basically about a horrible human being, really. It has no redemption features. And there's some great kind of cameos, and there's Tilda Swinton. There's a great kind of moment in there. I really recommend that. Anyone sees that. But my other one to talk about, which is a lot more fun, I think, but really interesting, is the new Apple TV series, which is Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. So this is the new series that's sort of on the Godzilla and all the rest of them genre. And the setup is it starts, straight away into this kind of world where the sort of Godzilla attacks are a thing. So this person's going through Japan looking for their father, looking for the flat of their dead father. And we sort of realise straight away there's sort of like signs everywhere saying if there's a Godzilla attack, you go here or you go there. This is what you do. So we know we're in a world where these kind of monsters exist. And then it sort of flips back to the past, to sort of the 1950s. And it's kind of like journey of trying to work out this. Right at the beginning, it starts at Kong Island, but you sort of get these mixtures. But what I really like about it places you in this world without sort of setup or an explanation. I'm sure we'll get more of that a bit later on. But it's good fun. It's a really well done. It's Kurt Russell is in it, really, in the second episode that I watched at the end. But the great thing is that playing the younger Kurt Russell is his actual son, who's really good. He's been in a couple of things as well. It's really good fun. It's really well put together. I'm really enjoying it so far. I've only watched 2 episodes because there's only been 2 out. I think you two might enjoy that. Does that sound good?
No, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, I think you will. Yeah, it's really good.
So Ryan's really into all that MonsterVerse stuff. So we watched it. I didn't really take to it, I've got to admit. And maybe I have to go back and rewatch it. He loved it, but after the first episode, I was a bit like, I don't know about this.
Not for you. It's
not
fun.
For me.
It's fun. Yeah, not for you.
I never thought I'd hear the day that Gareth would tell Darren that something was not for him.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, you two are normally in sync.
This is the beauty of it. It's the beautiful different opinions. Let's talk about games, what we've been playing. It's quite a quiet week, but to start us off with, I'm going to start because I've played a game called Worldless. And instead of me just talking about it, first of all, why don't we hear this interview that I met up with the developers?
Yeah, my name is Joel Rosette. I'm the main director of the game, created animations, particles effects, game design, basically things related to combat.
Yeah, I'm David Sanchez, and I am the studio director for No Name Studios, and I'm also the producer for Worldless.
Brilliant. So let's talk about Worldless, which is congratulations for the launch of your game. It's fantastic. I always ask this, first of all, could you give us maybe your elevated pitch for this game? Do you know what I mean by the elevator? Sort of like, how would you describe it to everyone? Yeah. I don't know who wants to go first.
Yeah, sure. It's a mouthful, but basically it's a 2D game action with a turn-based system for a combat that is easily to explain in visuals and trying it out that in an elevator pitch. But the idea was to make something very unique in the combat system, exploring something very interesting and something visually very appealing to attract, but then really get into the mechanics of the game.
And could you describe? No, we'll go for that in a second. How did it all begin? First of all, how far back did Worldless begin? The sort of roots of it. Maybe David can answer this one.
Yeah, quite far back. So if we go back to when the idea was, let's say, conceived, this goes back to almost 10 years ago, because the idea basically was from Joel. And he had the idea of the game back when he was at university. And then the story basically is that at some point we met with Joel and Carlos, who is our other partner in the company, in a company where we were working all together. And he explained us the idea. He showed us a little bit like some GIFs and some animations that he had been doing. And then we liked the game, and it stayed like that, no? So it was just a cool idea and something that it would be super nice to work on together. And then fast forward 3-4 years later, we meet again, and Joel tells us, hey, so let's do a demo. I think I have everything clear. Let's try it. We create a demo which took us around 6 months, with us working after hours, no? So after finishing our jobs, we would work on the project. And again, a little bit the same happened, no? So we finished the demo, we were happy with it, we thought it was cool. but then we stopped working on it, and Joel stayed with the idea, and slowly he had the time to move the demo around, to look for a publisher, and at some point, well, he actually found a publisher who was interested in the game, and at that point he came back again to us and he said, hey, so now we have a publisher, now we have actually the financial muscle to make the game, so should we make this game? We said yes, and until today, like that's the story.
Oh wow! And Joel, what was the difference between? So you were kind of working at this with your other jobs and trying to work this in the evenings and spare time. When was the moment you could kind of like just focus on that full time?
Right. So yeah, initially it was just a hobby. I like doing action movesets, thinking in the design aspect, not just the animation, like why I'm doing this move, what purpose does it have, and stuff like that. So linking very tightly design and animation. But yeah, doing this just for hobby, staying with one idea that I couldn't take out of my head. So I kept doing stuff with these kind of characters, finding some visual art style that could be manageable to do for like one person and also visually interesting. And once we did the prototype, it was the moment of, okay, let's be serious now, let's be professional, how we actually do this, test it properly, improve it, and see the flaws in paper. Something could be interesting, then in the game, it's not actually. So trying to actually find what's the core of the game.
Yeah, I'm a massive fan of visual storytelling in games, and in Worldless, you haven't got any text or any voiceover. It's all told visually. How important was that for you for that process? To start with Joel, maybe first of all.
Yeah, there's just a little bit of text, not too much, and it's very ambiguous. Nothing is too concrete in the game. That's on purpose, obviously. The other thing is we are very focused on gameplay, making the game fun, but having like an interesting setting, something mysterious, something that could attract you, but not too much distract of the gameplay focus aspect. So that's why we try to direct the narrative in this visually symbolism, things that you can interpret, leaving things open-ended. So we don't put something exactly on the player on what exactly is happening. They can discover whatever it is.
And let's talk about some of that gameplay mechanic, because I don't think I've ever played a game which has this kind of like almost platformy exploration side and then go into a turn-based combat. I don't think I've ever played anything like it before. How did the turn-based combat come about? Was that one of the first things, or one of the later things? I don't know who wants to answer that. David, do you want to have a chat about that?
I mean, I can answer it, but honestly, these kind of questions, I think Joel is the best one to answer them. Yeah.
Okay, Joel, what do you think?
Yeah, sure. For me, the gameplay combat was the core aspect. This, again, it was something that I just like it to think on what makes something fun in the combat, purposeful. I usually don't like games that have like a lot of abilities, but you actually have two that are actually useful, and the other is just whatever, So this thinking process for me was very interesting, and the idea of the turn-based aspect was I really like when defending is actually important, but it's not like boring and it's just defend to not be defeated and yet that's it. In our game, we have a lot of upgrades and stuff where defending actually has an active role on progressing the combat. Very similar to Sekiro, where you can parry, but actually you are depleting the posture damage of the enemies. In Worldless, we have a lot of systems that will make you improve the combat while you're defending.
It's rewarding as well, which I find it's tricky to. It's not tricky to do, but it's tricky to get better at it, which is the point. But it's rewarding when you start to it clicks.
It has, just to say very quickly, it has this initial curve, like you said, because it's a little bit new as a concept. Everything new has its own curve of adapting to the basics. So initially we make things relatively easy, just get familiar with all the mechanics, all the systems and everything. Later on we expand a lot on optional content that we make very tricky. So once you really get all the grasps of the mechanics, as you said, we think it gets very rewarding once everything clicks. Yeah.
Brilliant. What other maybe games or films or books or anything that's influenced you in the making of Worldless? David, you want to start, or do you want to start, Joel?
Yeah, the very initially the art style was more traditional, like characters had faces, clothes, and everything. But again, during the animation process is extremely exhausting. It's not that easy to do it at high level, and it's very scary budget-wise. So I actually watched the Fountain, the movie, and it's so abstract, that movie, and so onirical and etherical, that because the plot was this very minimalistic and abstract setting, I was thinking, let's put the characters and everything in the same framework of minimalistic style. So just the next day of watching the movie, I tried in Photoshop doing the animation of just a few dots, nothing very clear, no faces, no whatever, nothing that could give a lot of load work. And I found that it was very easy to do, very appealing, and something very unique. So a good fun, yeah.
Good. David, do you have anything to add to that? Anything you were influenced by?
Yeah, I think actually maybe something that we have not commented yet is that we are very big fans of Metroidvania games. Even if we don't describe necessarily Worldless as a Metroidvania, we are fans of, like Hollow Knight and all these kind of games already. And they have had an influence on how we created Worldless. Probably more on the platforming side than on the combat side, because of course the combat is quite unique. I mean, at least I have not seen any other game yet taking this approach. But the way the character moves, how it's easy to jump from platform to platform, how it flows, how the animations are well done, well linked one with the other, how it's interesting to learn things from the world while you explore it, like something that you do on Hollow Knight all the time. I think those were great influences that helped develop what Worldless has ended up being.
Yeah, brilliant. I've got a couple more questions. Let's talk about the sound first of all. It's kind of like your other amazing kind of element with the visuals and the gameplay. How did that collaboration? Is it Berlinist?
Yes.
Yeah. How did that collaboration come about? Maybe first of all to talk.
Yeah, I mean, I work on Greece. My brother is the creative director of Greece. I work there helping just a little bit, and met Marco, the main composer of Berlinist. And we were just talking, and he's a very hardcore player. He likes a lot of From Software games. We were gushing of Sekiro and stuff. And I showed the project that we had, the prototype. He was interested, and he told me, hey, anything moves forward, let me know. And we just talked. He was interested from the beginning, and he has been a good catch. Berlinist is amazing, and they do an amazing job. And I'm very grateful because he understands a lot video games, and it's very easy to work with him. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic! It's really great, those collaborations that just start to repeat themselves after a while, and it's really in sync. It feels really good. I love it. What bit of advice? Maybe we'll start with David on this. What bit of advice would you give to other indie developers, game developers working on a project from scratch like you? If you had one bit of advice, what would you say?
Well, I think I probably have like a ton of advice, but for me, one of the most important parts in any kind of project, and especially in video games, is that team needs to be well communicated. So communication is really important in teams, because you need to understand what everyone is working on and why they're working on what and why they are maybe having problems on, to actually keep things advancing. And in our case, this was even more important because we are a 100% remote company. So Worldless was made 100% remotely because we were born during the pandemic. And that meant that we actually had to start like that. And it's been in our essence in the beginning. And for us, like, defining properly how people work together was super, super important. And I think it's something that we took very seriously since the beginning. And it's something that definitely, if you don't do properly, it's going to make you stop to make like it's not going to let you advance in the proper direction or with the proper velocity. Let's say. So I would say, yeah, take into account that you're a team, that you need to communicate, and that things need to be done as a team since the beginning.
One of the big things, yeah. Joel, anything you want to add to that at all?
Sure. Yeah. From the creative aspect, for me personally, just do something that you want to do. That makes work very easy. Because otherwise, everything always is stressful in video games. So at least make it fun to do. The other thing is, every game is its own world. But for our case, we know we needed certain budget and certain time. So we didn't rush to make the game without the proper resources, in bad conditions, not living well. So we just waited. And if things didn't come out, it's not a big issue. The game is not done. That's not a problem. I just want to be happy doing the video game with the proper resources. So, just don't push your health or anything doing something that is not manageable.
Very good advice. Really good advice for all of us, for everything in life, I think.
Yeah.
And just the last question is, can you let us know about any future projects that you're working on? Any kind of glimpses of something?
There's not much I can say at this point.
No.
But yeah, we are working on something. We already have an idea, which is quite clear at this point. But yeah, it's in a really, really early stage, and for the moment, there's not much more I can say. No,
fair enough. I always try to get something out of you. But Joel, David, thank you, and congratulations again on Worldless for your launch. This is out now. It's a great game, very unique, beautifully visual, and congratulations, and thanks for doing the podcast.
Thank you, Gareth.
Thank you.
Gareth.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So there you have it. Worldless. Nice to hear from them. I've given it a 4 out of 5. It's a beautiful kind of piece of visual storytelling. You start off as these two it's the beginnings of a kind of universe, these two entities, as we've heard, kind of fighting. But and you kind of go through. What's amazing about it, like we said, it's that mixture of sort of platforming, 2D platforming, and then suddenly you're doing turn-based battles that are really, really interesting, but really hard. I think the reason I give it a 4, I think maybe a casual gamer like me, probably it could be quite. It's one of those games that has that kind of Souls kind of feel when you have to kind of learn the rhythm of a fight and learn how to defend and attack in that turn-based way, and you could get quite unstuck quite quickly. But it's a really great game. I think people who are really kind of more au fait, like Paul's son, would really.
I haven't found a game yet that he cannot do.
Yes, exactly.
Honestly, it's absolutely gutted. But anyway,
if it was him, I'd add another half star on top of that, 4.5 out of 5, because I think it's really good. Because they'll find it really, and the challenge of it's very interesting. But it's great. There you go, Worldless. Darren, what's your first game you want to chat about?
So I've been playing a game this week called Super Crazy Rhythm Castle. And it comes from Konami, and it's essentially a rhythm action game. So you are imprisoned in this castle, and you go from level to level. So it's like a little world map, and each level is a different song that you play. So it works a bit like Guitar Hero, where the notes come down the track towards you. You've got to press the right buttons. So you use the 2 bumpers on the controller and the X button, and then if you want to switch it up from normal to the pro difficulty, the right direction on the D-pad's also thrown in there as well. And the songs are really good. Like, they're original, but they kind of tick loads of different genres. They're really catchy, really well produced. But there's also some classics in there as well you can unlock. So I was playing, I think it was Vampire Slayer or something it's called, from one of the old Castlevania games, which was brilliant. And you play it, and then there's like a remix and stuff as well. It's just great. If you like music, then you'll really, really enjoy it. And there's a very, very light smattering of adventure in there as well, in terms of how you go from level to level, and you pick up different tools and stuff. So you might pick up like a pesticide gun to clear away some vines to get into the next level and stuff like that. So I'm really, really enjoying it at the moment, I've got to say. And you can then go into like a different kind of side room and challenge yourself to get high scores as well. You can locally, people can kind of drop in and out as well to help you, or you can get your friends involved over the Xbox Live service. So I'll be dragging somebody in to help me, Paul, potentially, pretty sure, I'm soon.
God, great. What have I ever done for you, Darren?
Look forward to that one. But no, I'm really enjoying it. It's one of those games that it's just really easy to pick up and play, but it's really well produced. The music kind of has the feel good factor, and it's a great way to kind of pass a couple of hours. So keep your eyes peeled for a review very soon.
Oh, good. Any questions, Paul, about that game? You'll be playing it soon.
Well, yeah, I can't wait. I love the way that I get volunteered for these things as well. If it's not Darren going, oh, we'll get Paul to play it, it's Neil going, can you just play this? No, it sounds quite interesting. I mean, I do like a rhythm action game. I was a big fan of Guitar Hero in the day. And I also love the drumming game that was released not so long ago that I cannot for the life of me remember the name of. No. What was it called? Taijin no Futsukin or something like that. Yeah, I might just making up sort of random syllables. But
we'll go for that. I like that.
Yeah, it was something no something.
Yeah,
and it was all Japanese. Yeah, that's going to really bug me now. That is. No, other than that, no further questions, Your Honour.
Good. I don't think we ever. Yeah, one question. It was good. Let's talk about your game. This game I was looking at today, actually, The Last Faith. Tell us about that, Paul.
The Last Faith is quite an interesting game. It's basically a cross between Castlevania and a Dark Souls game. It does the annoying thing now that more and more games are doing, where if you rest at a checkpoint, for some bizarre reason, all the creatures you've killed come back to life.
Yes.
Now, obviously, it's explained in Dark Souls. It isn't quite explained in this game. It isn't explained in many other games. But anyway, so what you've got, it's a 2D platformer with a lovely sort of gothic pixel art style about it. It looks really good. And there are many enemies and there is many fightings. And it's very difficult. And I mean, properly difficult. Even the little enemies can overwhelm you and kill you in an instant. And other than that, you know, it looks great. The combat's really good. It's really gory. You can do execution moves if you weaken enemies enough. And they're absolutely brutal. So I was a big fan of that. And yeah, it's the review's live on the site now, and I'll invite guesses as to what score I gave it.
4 out of 5.
Close. What's my favourite score, Gareth?
Oh, it's not 4.5, is it?
It was 4.5, and it was. I did it, and then gave it to Neil, and only then thought, "Oh God, here we go." So yeah, 4.5 of anybody's money. It's really, really good.
I'm going to look.
Yeah.
Sorry, Darren.
Sorry, Gareth. In the spirit of the autumn statement, I'm going to make a graph of all the games and what the scores you've given, and we'll share it.
As you can see, over time, games are getting better. And that's all down to the Conservatives.
Right. Good, Paul. Thank you. Darren, what's your... No, it's me, isn't it? It's back to me now. Oh, my word. Well, the good news is, before we go on to my other game, is I finished Alan Wake 2. And love it. Do you know, I think best game of the year. It's brilliant.
Thank you.
Paul, I think...
Apart from all the others.
No, I think you're like... Paul, I think you'll really like this because, really...
I didn't like the first one.
Well, I think it's very different. I think it's basically Resident Evil. As in the way it moves and the way it controls. It's really good. Brilliant. It's brilliant. It's I had a great time with it.
I must say that normally, me and you don't see eye to eye on games. So I'm surprised that you would try and recommend it.
Well, I think it is. There's moments in it that are just... I mean, it's the best looking game of the year. It's unbelievable. So just get... I think you'll have that experience. You've got to have that experience. Just try it. The game I am playing, because Paul, that's just a big shout out. Now, some of you might know is James has been on the podcast recently. James Burks, who's a regular here, started the thing. He's just been very poorly, and he's getting better. He's on the mend slowly, so that's why he hasn't been on the podcast. So big shout out to James, if he's listening. He's probably not. I'd say get better from all of us. first of all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the other thing that I told him off about is every year he does the Football Manager review games, and I'm having to pick it up this year because he's been poorly. So I'm very annoyed. So I'm playing Football Manager 24, which is it's hard because I've played Football Manager before on PCs, and it's so addictive after a while, and then you question your life and doing that. And I'm doing the same thing. I've sort of done a couple of seasons already. I haven't done the review yet. And it's great. It does what it does. It's all these little tweaks here and there on the stats. But, you're generally looking at stats and trying to buy and sell players and sitting there looking at whole seasons and bits of your life go by very, very quickly. So I haven't got much more to say at the moment apart from I'm doing it. Thank you, James, for giving me this. Hell, and I'm addicted to it, and I'll get a review done soon. I'm sure it's going to be all right. Good. Paul, what's your next one? And I'll go to Dan.
My next one, I'm going to actually just take a brief moment there because I said the name of that game was bugging me.
Yeah.
It's actually called Taiko no Tatsujin, the Drum Master.
Oh,
so there you go.
brilliant.
I may have just looked that up.
Good.
So, yes, it's very good anyway. If you've not played it, play it.
Great.
My second game is another Kemco retro-styled JRPG, just for a change. I mean, I can't even begin to tell you how many of these games I've reviewed. It's certainly upwards of 30. This one is called Grace of L'Etoile. I'm assuming it's L'Etoile. That's how it's spelled. And basically, the story revolves around 6 creatures called L'Etoiles that were constructed in order to find a human partner and then have a massive fight and have one really strong one left at the end. So basically, it's a JRPG, retro-styled, as I've said. You get your band together, you wander off, you try and find these other L'Etoiles and steal their... They're called certzes, but I'm assuming it's like their heart or something. And yeah, it's very much some more Kenko JRPG. Wow. The review is, well, I'll probably write it when I've finished chatting to you lovely boys tonight. But so far it's on course for a sort of solid 3.5. It doesn't do anything wildly exciting, but it doesn't particularly do anything wrong. It's just some more RPG.
Yeah, good. I'm never going to play one of these games.
No, I really.
You don't have to,
I think we need somebody. We need somebody else to step up and do one.
Yeah.
You know, we've got Darren now doing all the motorbike games, and I think you should do the Kemco ones.
Well, if you take the train games and then away from me.
No. I've spoken to Neil, and I'm only doing AAAs from now on.
I like to have been called Lovely Boys. Darren.
I don't know how I feel about that.
It's like Spencer Davis, Lovely Boys, Lovely Boys.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's one for the kids.
Absolutely. Target demographic.
Yeah. Darren, what's your last game?
So my second game is called Trash is Fun. And it's from a Ukrainian team. And essentially what you do is recycle rubbish, really. It's got a very kind of wholesome message around recycling and looking after the earth. And how it plays out is there's only a handful of levels, really. I think it's 5. And you've got different machines and you have to feed either trash or plastic bottles and create resources to keep the fuel running, or you might need to protect the integrity of the buildings from zombies which turn up in waves. So you've got little turrets and you have to repair the barricades with materials as well. So it's almost like a bit of a tower defense game with a bit of crafting thrown in for good measure. And it's all right. Like it's not very complicated. It's quite straightforward, but it is quite enjoyable. And the levels do get gradually more challenging as well. So depending on how much trash you recycle, you'll get a bronze, silver, or gold coloured bin, which represents a medal, I guess, for the level. And then you can also play. You can play locally as well, so you can get somebody else involved. And you can also play like a zombie defense mini game, which is just fending off zombies. You don't have to craft anything. You basically just make sure the waves of zombies don't get to your HQ and take down the building. However, because it's a Ukrainian developer, on one of them there's like a little island. I don't know if it's based off. Do you remember? Was it called Snake Island at the start of the war?
Yeah.
And these ships are coming in, and you just have to chuck Molotovs at them to sink them. And then if the zombies get on to the land, then there's a flamethrower. But some of them have got little Zs on the helmets, so it's clearly referencing what's been happening over in Ukraine and stuff. So it's a fun little game, to be fair. It's one of the features which made me laugh is listed as easy achievements, and boy, they mean it. In the first 2 levels, just simply by recycling stuff, which is what you do in the game anyway, you'll have 1,000 gamer score in about 10 minutes. So it has a wholesome message, so it's worth checking out, but it is very much what it says on the tin. There's no real hidden depths to it or anything like that.
Trash is fun. Thank you, Darren.
It is, to be fair. It is fun.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. Let's move on to some news. We've got it's quite quiet in the news, but the one big news that we want to talk about first of all is Paul's got a dilemma, and we're going to help him out. There's been a big PS5 price drop. I think it's almost £100, isn't it? Knocked off the price for this.
Yep.
Yeah, which is a massive thing. Is it only for Black Friday, or is it going to be? Is that it now? Is it?
I believe it's only a Black Friday thing.
Right. So it's quite a chunk. So Paul's dilemma is: should Paul buy a PS5? Paul, tell us what your thoughts are at the moment. What's your thinking?
Well, my thoughts are PS5. I haven't got one, so I don't know how much of my desire is just like FOMO. But there's games that you can only play on the PlayStation, isn't there? I mean, don't get me started on God of War. I've given up with that one. But yeah, the PS4 is gone now because I've just got fed up with the sight of the thing. So yeah, basically, it's such a price drop. It's actually cheaper to buy a PS5 in Black Friday than it is to buy a Series X, which is the opposite way around to usual. And my dilemma is: should I get one and play games just for fun, like some kind of filthy casual? Or do I just stick with the Xbox and play any of the 18 million review games that we seem to have in the list at the moment? Now, Neil weighed in on the debate with a pithy remark, I thought, where he just said, get your reviews done. But obviously, now that I've got you two boys here, I'm hoping that you can give me some advice. Do you think that I would like a PS5? Do I want a great big white monstrosity in my living room?
Darren, what do you think?
I mean, it's probably not going to. Yeah, it's probably not going to be very helpful. But I'm just intrigued to what's with the sudden change of heart, because normally you don't have very, let's say, complimentary things to say about our cousins who play Sony PlayStation. So is it just
I
the
don't
price,
normally.
or if
It's
you
just
had an
price. Yeah,
epiphany,
it's
or...
literally money. That's all it is.
Oh, okay, fine. I would always say yes. I think between me and Ryan, we have.
I was going to say I've heard that.
Listen, that's for the young boys. But I do think that there's always this stupid war with Xbox versus Sony, all this rubbish. I think the more games you have in your life, the better. There are loads of great games on the PlayStation. And yes, these days exclusives seem to be harder to hold on to, like Stray and stuff like that. But actually, not that I've got time to play a lot of PlayStation games, to be quite honest. But I know, Ryan's played all sorts, from Horizon to God of War to the Spider-Man games. So I think if you're happy to spend the money and you think it's a good price, I will definitely go for it. It just means that you're going to have to make sure you've ring-fenced your review game times for Neil, that's all.
Yeah, that's the problem. I can't remember the last time I bought a game just because I thought I'd like to play that, because there's just literally no time. But I'm worried that video games are going to feel like work more than an escape from work. Do you know what I mean? I
think you should do it if you can afford, because you've got. I'm going to say games that I think you should do. Returnal. I think it's PS5 exclusive. That's really, really good. I forgot about that. That'd be very cheap now as well. We can probably get it in the thing. The Final Fantasy games, you've got the remakes of 7, you've got the new 16, you've got the new Final Fantasy Part 2 thing coming out in March. Spider-Man's are very good. Spider-Man 1 and 2. God of War, of course.
I told you not to mention God of War. I'm still sore about that.
Sorry, triggered.
You hate The Last of Us, but The Last of Us 2 is a fantastic game. And there's a remake of that coming out in January for the PS5.
More remakes than actual original games now, because there's 3 now, technically.
Yeah. You've got all those Spider-Man, Ratchet and Clank. I'm trying to sort of look through Horizon Forbidden West, which is good fun.
I did enjoy that one.
Have you played Demon's Souls? Did you get that on the PS4? Did you play that?
No, you couldn't. You can't get it on the PS4.
Oh yeah, you got that to play
as
well.
Launch I think.
Yeah, it's PS3 or PS5. You can't get it on the 4.
You got Uncharted, which is you could get the PS5 collection of all of those games. It's good fun.
I played those when I had a PS3, and I didn't think much of them.
What about Ghost of Tsushima? I think you'll love that.
Ghost of Satsuma, I've played that one.
You played that one. There you go. You got things to play. You got loads of games. Death Stranding. That's a good game.
But isn't that? Oh, that's on the PC, isn't it? It's not on the Xbox.
No, it's on the PlayStation. I say do it, Paul. Do it, and then you get sick of it. But do it.
You'll never get time to complete all the games anyway. So,
but it's good.
No, that's true.
Running out.
It's nice. I know what you mean, because sometimes I think I get it when I've got the PlayStations. At the moment, I've got Spider-Man 2, so I can go on there, and I'm not distracted. When I go on the Xbox to play something, I set Alan Wake 2. I then go, I should be doing a review game, and I suddenly go onto one of those. So I have a kind of like, I need to be looking at that. So it's sometimes good to have a console switched on. There you go. Actually, I'm not doing anything review-wise on here, except playing it.
Until Neil gets the PlayStationHub.com.
There is another option, Paul. Maybe you should submit a flexible working request to HR and see what they say.
Yeah.
Go to the Xbox Hub HR.
They're correct. Yeah.
Or to my HR.
Whatever works for you.
I don't think the Xbox Hub HR does. I don't think they exist, to be fair. They're like fairies and unicorns. They're nice to think about, but they're not actually real.
Let's have a little chat about some other bits of news. What are you going to do, Paul? Have you made a decision? Yeah. Tell us.
Well, no, because you guys have been absolutely no help.
We said do it.
We said do it.
I know you said do it, but it's such a dilemma. I feel like, is it Nelly that sung Dilemma? Yeah. Anyway, another Target reference there.
Yeah. Let's talk about this little article about the Series X and S sales that have. In this article, it says they've collapsed in Europe. It's. I didn't realise it. I thought they were doing all right, but they've not had a great time in Europe this year, and I think the hardware stuff is down by 23% year to date. Have you had a look at this article? Is it as bad as it looks, or is it just about where we are?
I think it's just clickbait, to be fair.
Right.
It's just, I wouldn't put too much credence into it. So, I mean, it might be down, but, we're in a cost of living crisis. So,
I thought it was really high.
Everybody's not.
Yeah. I don't know. I heard it.
They're not going to be spending a fortune, are they? No. So, but I don't think that the fella at the head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, is sweating just yet.
Darren, what is your thoughts?
I think it's wrong to just dismiss it. Like it is newsworthy, I think, but it all depends on how much of the strategy is tied up in hardware, and we seem to have had a good indication that Xbox are moving away from traditional ways of playing games and diversifying as much as possible, and they are attached to Microsoft, which are huge. So I don't think it should spark any sort of concern or panic, but I think it is still quite a big drop in terms of hardware, and it'll just be interesting to see if that changes the direction of travel or any sort of plans that Xbox have got. I can't imagine it will, because I imagine they've budgeted for this because the way they've gone after cloud gaming and Game Pass and stuff like that. But I don't think it's particularly surprising or worrying, but it is still newsworthy, I think.
I mean, it's probably taken, if it's the year to date, so it's probably taken into sort of like the first 8 months of that year before Starfield and before Forza, before the sort of autumn, which has been quite a strong showing for Game Pass, which probably sells consoles as well. So it'd be interesting to see that in 2 parts, to see if it's picked up a lot since then. Let's have another look at something else. This is an interesting one because I reviewed this game. I think Immortals of Avium came out in August, and they sadly their sales are quite poor, and they have lost a lot of their staff. Had to let a lot of staff go, which is very sad. But they talked about that their window was quite busy. They didn't realise that Baldur's Gate 3 was going to be so popular. And, to talk about marketing as well, when you're committed to a date, all the marketing is aimed at that, and you can't suddenly just change dates around and everything. What do we think about that time? They did change a day around though, didn't they? I thought it was going to be coming out in July, and they moved it to August, didn't they? That's why it doesn't make any sense. Didn't they? Is that right? They did, didn't they? It was meant to be July or June or something, and then they moved it to the end of August, and they didn't realise. So I don't believe that.
I'm sure you've got all the facts at your fingertips there.
I always have, yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like a bit of a strange excuse, if I'm honest. We didn't expect Baldur's Gate 3 to be big. Well, the other two have been massive, so why would the third one be any different? That just seems like bad planning, if I can be harsh for a minute. But, I mean, was the game worth it in the end? What did you give it when you reviewed it?
I gave it a 4. I really enjoyed it. It was,
Is that the one where it's like a first-person shooter with magic?
Exactly, yeah.
Is that the one,
yeah.
So you've got different magic in different hands?
Yeah.
Because I thought that looked quite good.
It's really good.
But I've not noticed a hole in my life that I haven't played it. So
I think the busy thing was, Starfield was like a week away. Baldur's Gate was there, and then we're off into the autumn, and it's like it easily gets lost in that time. I think if they would have released in July or June, they might have done better, maybe, because it was quite quiet then. I think this is the whole thing about the release schedule. We've talked about this really early on in the podcast. I've always believed it's such a weird thing that we're still stuck on this September to December. Kind of like, let's throw all the games in then. And it's been really interesting this year where we had a few games that have just gone, actually, we're pulling out, we're going to January, February time. And they've been honest about it, saying, because it's too crowded. Even Alan Wake 2 moved to the end of the month to get away from Spider-Man, is that right?
It did, yeah. 2 weeks I think it was. But I am inclined to agree with Paul. I think I understand that it's difficult.
Blimey. Do we want to notify the papers?
But I do think that it is a bit of a strange, dare I say, a bit of a whinge. I mean, for 2 reasons. The first reason is that Baldur's Gate 3 was a sleeper hit, but you get them every year, depending on the release schedule. And it's not a direct competition because it's not the same genre of game. So I feel like that's doesn't quite stack up. And also, I wonder how difficult it would have actually been to delay it if they'd have really kind of thought about it with enough foresight, because we all knew this game was going to be massive. We all knew that games had been pushed because of COVID and stuff as well. So I think it's just unfortunate. It is an unbelievable year for games, and there are so many good games that have come out. I think, it's a bit of a case of, well, that's just the way it goes sometimes. I don't think kind of moaning about it is like they've been treated unfairly compared to, other games. It's just the way it goes sometimes, I think.
Also, we're at a point now, it's really hard for them to gauge this, though. It's like, we've got now, in November, we've got sort of 3 weeks with no big releases, have we?
Doesn't feel like it.
So we had Call of Duty that came out at the start of November, but there's nothing huge in this month. So it's really interesting, isn't it? I mean, they can't anticipate this, can they? Because they don't know when certain games are going to get released and they move. But there does seem to be gaps in the year when you go, well, there isn't anything else. And if you would have had a AAA game or a AA game like Immortals of Avium, a new IP going in there, it would have probably done quite well. But at that point, no. So I always think the July, August time when no one puts games out because of the summer holidays, because that old school thought process, that only kids play games.
It used to be movie tie-ins.
Yeah, it just, no, put in something there. You'll do well. It's going to do well. Yeah, there we go. And I think this kind of links on to, I think Neil's put this on about actually then games that do get released. And he made a thing about the recent one with Tintin, which is quite an interesting thing that came out. And Tintin, when they came out, was their kind of release. Tintin reporter, Cigars of the Pharaoh. And they said, despite our best efforts, those who play the game at launch won't be able to rejoin the experience as it was intended to be. We're committed to fixing this situation in a prompt manner. We're going to deliver the patches in the next couple of weeks. What do we think then about games, of course, which is going back to the Immortals one, about they've got their day. They've got their kind of marketing and stuff, but the game is ready, but they're still going to release it in a bad shape. And they're going to fix it. This is happening more and more, isn't it, with certain games? Gollum being one of them, even though Gollum never got any better. But it's do you think
even Alan Wake had its little issues on the Xbox, didn't it? And my sound cut out every now and then. But I think that back in the day, and I know I hark on about why can't everything just be on a disc? You put it in and play it, and not have to download 100 gigabytes and bloody expansion cards that cost an arm and a leg and stuff. Back in the day, you didn't have an option. You had to have it right for release. It had to be right, because if you shipped something on a disc and it was bad, you couldn't patch it. If it was really bad, maybe you go for like a recall or exchange or whatever. I know Nintendo sent out some. It was technically a patch. It was in the early days. I think it was for Zelda Skyward Sword. There was a way of you getting stuck in the game and you couldn't get out, and it would basically, you wouldn't be able to continue at all. So they had like the channel on the Wii. That was a very early version of patching, but I think now it's a bit of we can just patch it. And I don't know whether it's because, like we're talking about with Immortals, they need to hit a date because they're going to lose money on marketing. So they think, they weigh up the ups and downs and think, we'll just go for it and we'll patch it. But the problem this year especially is that if they don't get it right quickly, it just sinks and it's gone and you've lost your opportunity.
Yeah.
So I'm a bit old-fashioned in terms of, if you say it's going to be ready and release it, there's only one chance to make a first impression, and I think you should lead with the best. So,
yeah. Paul, any more thoughts on that?
Again, this is getting worrying, but I'm in almost complete agreement with what Daz says.
Wow, cross-party support.
It's very odd, isn't it? I'm not sure I like this feeling. Basically, like he says, you get one chance. If you play the game and it's an absolute joke from the beginning, then you're not going to bother with it. There's going to be another game coming along next week. Yeah, well, Redfall's not quite as bad an example as you think it is. Redfall was a good game and I enjoyed that. So, yeah.
Glad you did.
I did. Anyway, Redfall was good, but I mean, you see it more often these days. Yeah, you completely have. My train of thought has fallen off the bridge and crashed into a school. Honestly, Darren, hang on. I'm trying to drag my thought back from wherever they've run off to. I was talking about first impressions. The point I was going to make was that you've never used to see apologies on Twitter or X or whatever it's called these days from the developers going, yeah, we know the game's a bit shit, but bear with us and we'll make it all right. Well, no, you can't, can you? If you've got so much faith in your game that you release it so it works. Don't release it and then go, yeah, it's a bit rubbish, but you know what? It'll be all right. We'll release a 100 gig pack. I mean, how many games do you see these days with a day one patch of multi gigs? It's just.
I think I'm going to.
Lazy is what it is, Gareth.
I agree with you both, but I think the difference is, and I'm going to be on the developer's side here. The biggest thing is, like, especially on some of the AA games, it's when they go. Starfield and Bethesda can afford to go, we're going to take a year to get this right because they can afford to pay everyone. The smaller developers or the new developers will go, they want to release it because they need the money in quickly. before they do anything. I don't think it's right, but that's probably why they do it, so they can get actual sales coming in and money coming in, and they can continue to survive. Because so many companies are just going under straight away now as well, or they're having problems, or they're letting people go.
Well, I mean, that's a reasonable argument. I can understand why they do that. But if they release a game in such poor shape,
I'm with you on that.
Then the next time that they release another game, nobody's going to be queuing up going, "Oh, I can't wait to play that game from developer XYZ. Their last game was great."
Yeah.
So everybody's got their own favourite developers.
Yeah.
But released in broken ass games is not the way to be anybody's favourite developer.
No. There you go. Good. There's a couple of little other bits of news. We know that Ark Survival is out now on Xbox, isn't it?
Woo.
It's just dropped. It's there to play, I think. I don't know if it must be on Game Pass. You can get it down there. I'm sort of looking at Twitter. Someone said, got to be honest, as much as the PC sucked when it came out, this Xbox release version seems to be very stable. 5 hours of gameplay, not one disconnect.
Wow.
I don't know what the rest of them are saying, but yeah, it's out there. It's ready to go. So we'll get maybe some thoughts on that next week. We've all had a go at it.
I think you might have some thoughts on it, Gareth. All you.
And there's some delayed news though. Prince of Persia gets a little update. It's not dead in the water. What's going on there, Darren? You excited about this?
Yeah, so I know a few months ago we were talking about Ubisoft and what's happening there and what isn't happening. But they've come back and said that the Sands of Time remake, it was rumoured to be dead, but they said something just before their Ubisoft Forward a few months ago saying basically it exists, but it's not going to be the showcase. And there's just a further kind of confirmation of that, saying they've passed an important internal milestone and it's very much in development. So that's the Sands of Time remake, Prince of Persia. And obviously they've got the other one, the kind of platformer one coming out in January, I think it is. So that bodes well, because that's a project I think a lot of people are excited about. Obviously, what that means for other projects, we don't know, because we've got Skull and Bones that's on the internal merry-go-round of hell. And
that game's not coming out.
Holding out hope for.
Yeah,
well.
and that's never coming either.
I know you'll ask me for it, but I very much want to see that. But no, I think it's good news, because I think a lot of people feared a lot of projects were just getting the chop from Ubisoft, as they seem to be. Well, I don't know what they're doing these days, to be honest. I can't even remember the last game they released, which is probably bad, but it's good news anyway. Good.
And then the Knights of the Old Republic remake, PlayStation led something with that's had some weird rumours, but it's alive apparently still. You know, one said it's dead. I don't know if that's ever going to come out, or if it might be a while. But apparently, it's people are still working on it. So 2 people still doing it.
It's just very odd, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was fan favourite, and everyone was really excited when it was dropped. And all of a sudden now it's kind of a bit of a. It feels like it's the bus from the end of the Talon John dangling over a cliff, and it could go off, or it might get saved. Like you just don't know which way it's going to go.
Don't know what's going to happen. We'll find out more. But that's our news. What are we looking forward to, gentlemen, next week? What about you, Paul? What are you looking forward to? Anything?
Next week, all I've got to look forward to, I'm staring down the barrel of a long week at work. That's about it. I mean, it's Christmas time, which is absolute hell in the branches.
Maybe a PS5? PS5? You might be looking forward to?
Maybe a PS5 to help salve my fevered brow. After my brain is still not working after Darren managed to derail it quite spectacular. But yeah, maybe a PS5. Well, no, because you'd lose. Anyway.
Darren, what about you? What are you looking forward to?
Yes, it's Black Friday weekend, so it'll be very busy at work. But I'm looking forward to as I said earlier, the Doctor Who 60th anniversary special start on Saturday. So the old showrunner Russ T Davies is back in charge. David Tennant's back. Catherine Tate's back. It's back on Saturday nights. It just feels like the kind of injection of life it needs after the last few years. So I'm very excited about that.
Great.
Is it just another remake?
No, it's
there
not
seems
a remake.
To be a lot of it about these days.
It's just a. I think it's a bit of a kind of callback for a lot of previous characters and stuff because it's an anniversary special, and then they're going to launch into the new Doctor for the Christmas special as well. So there's going to be 4 episodes over the next month or so, which will be good.
Good.
Woo.
I've got nothing to look forward to. Game-wise, maybe I'm going to play some more Spider-Man 2. I'm quite enjoying it myself a bit now, and it's picked up. I like it a lot. Now, if we need to get hold of you, where do we get hold of you, Darren?
I'm on what the format that's previously known as Twitter at 27Darren.
And what about you, Paul?
I am on X and Threads, and my handle. Stop laughing.
Threads
My
gets me
handle
every
is. I don't know why. Threads is great. It like I say, it's like Twitter if it wasn't full of Elon Musk. Anyway, my handle is at TheXboxHub Paul.
Good. They can find me on GB Brady and all the things. But for now, gentlemen, so thank you very much. And we're
MySpace and everything.
Everything. MySpace.
OnlyFans.
Bebo. OnlyFans.
God, I looked on Gareth's OnlyFans one time. Never again. I'm still scarred.
Right, gentlemen, thank you very much. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. You've been listening to the official podcast of TheXboxHub.com. You'll be able to find all the notes for this show at www.thexboxhub.com/podcast. You can also check out our social feeds on Instagram and Twitter at The Xbox Hub, and search for The Xbox Hub on Facebook.